Take it away, Davey boy.
All right, thanks a lot, Kenny. It is Dave Lawrence. We are down here at the Tweeter Center, 100.7 WZLX. It's Boston's classic rock. And tonight, of course, ZLX is welcoming Ted Nugent, who is on stage and playing. Deep Purple coming up a little later. And then the headlining show. This band that has been part of the Southern Rock legacy and has done so much for bringing guitar rock to the forefront. I have multi-instrumentalist, singer, guitar player, Ricky Medlocke from Skynyrd joining me here on ZLX.
Hey, how you doing? It's good to be here.
Good to see you, my man.
Good to see you.
So tell me, what's the vibe been like doing this tour with the Nuge and Purple?
Actually, it's been really good. I guess it was last year, we ended up getting a list of people that we wanted to tour with this year and, have on the package with us. And all of a sudden, when the Purple guys came up, I was way for that. And then all of a sudden, Nugent came up. We said, hey, let's take Uncle Ted out with us, and have a wang-dang doodle of a time, But so far, it's been really good, man. The crowds have just loved the package. And it's too bad that it can't go on for much longer, and it's going to go on this summer, but it's the way things are. But we're having a kick-ass time, man. It's a great American tradition, good rock.
No, it's all about the guitars. Like I said, it's some real guitar-heavy tour, and we are stoked to be presenting it.
Well, you got some pretty heavy guitar players floating around in this encampment right now. You got Nugent, Steve Morris, with Deep Purple.
Gary Rossington,
Huey Thomason, and myself, Ricky
Yourself
Medlocke.
right here.
So, you got a lot of guitar slingers walking around here right now.
So, Ricky, I want to give the people listening a little historical background on you, because some people may need a little brushing up on history. You go right back to the original Lynyrd Skynyrd, and you were playing drums with the band. Fill people in on those early days.
Well, what happened was I took a hiatus from a group named Blackfoot back at the end of the 60s, and joined Skynyrd for just shy about 3 years that I was one of the original drummers for the band. And then all of a sudden what ended up happening was their original drummer, they wanted to do 2 drummers, and I basically just didn't want to sit behind a set of drums for my whole career, and opted to leave the band and go back with Blackfoot, and that's where I spent the rest of my career with those guys. Had great success with those guys.
Train.
You got it. In the late 70s, early 80s. Kept the band going, and then about 6 years ago, I got a call from Gary Rossington, and we hooked it up again, and here I am,
Another big part of your legacy, however, extends beyond you to Shorty Medlocke, and I want to hear how your pop was a major influence on none other than Ronnie Van Zant when he was a little boy.
Well, the deal was that my old man was part of the West Side neighborhood and was a known musician back then, and a known musician in the whole Southeast. Played in and out of Nashville with, a lot of different people, and was my major influence growing up as far as being he was like a Mississippi Delta bluesman, countryish player, and that was my major influence. That's
swamp music.
You got it. That's where I learned all about that kind of stuff, And then Ronnie, had heard about him and the guys, and when I started playing the band, they used to come over and hang out on our porch all the time, and Ronnie just loved listening to my old man play all the time, And that's where the basis for Curtis Lowe really came from, was from my old man.
So you get right there, this huge connection between Ricky Medlocke and really the origins of the Skynyrd sound. Now, there's something else that you've brought to the table with Skynyrd. When I was a little kid, I remember on Skynyrd's First and Last, there was a killer tune on there that they used to play on this psychedelic radio show called the Psychedelic Supper when I was growing up in Philly. It was called White Dove.
That was me.
And White Dove was this really psychedelic ballad and spiritual, and it doesn't it call in your Native American background?
Well, basically, my dad, my actual biological father, was a full-blooded Lakota Sioux Indian. My biological mother, was half Choctaw Indian and Scottish. So, there's a lot of Native American descent, on my side of the family, heavily bloodline from it, and for a while in the Blackfoot days, of course, there was 2 other Indians in Blackfoot, and then we were basically almost all a Native American band, all except one guy, and we used to call him our token white boy, in the band, but it had a lot of, the Native American whole spiritual thing had a lot to do with our music at the time, and our viewpoints and the things that we believed in, and still to this day, a lot of the stuff that I believed in then, I still believe in right now,
Something while we're on that multicultural tip, I just couldn't avoid bringing this up. I went to the phones the last couple times I was on the air and sort of got some questions from listeners. You know, hey, I'm going to be talking to one of the guys in Skynyrd. What would you ask, you know, if you had their ear and, you know, you could ask him some stuff? And something that Skynyrd's always had sort of a controversial outlaw image. There's been misunderstood song lyrics, whether it's Give Me Back My Bullets or whether it's something maybe the most prominent thing that maybe you've been misunderstood for, and that's the Confederate flag, which has a lot of meaning to some people. Sometimes it doesn't have the greatest meaning. I want to know how Skynyrd defines the Confederate flag and how they use it.
Well, basically, Lynyrd Skynyrd has been given a bad rap in the last couple of years for the whole Confederate flag thing that we're, you know, that we're biased, that we're, you know, really kind of like racist. And I mean, if there was any racism in this band, I would be the first one to know it, being Native American. You know what I mean?
And there isn't any.
And there's no racism in this band. I mean, the Confederate flag really is about traditional heritage in the South. That's really all it is. You know, not too long ago, I gave somebody a really great lesson about something. You know, everybody always spoke really highly of Abraham Lincoln, about what a great president he was and everything. Not too many people knew that he actually owned slaves at one point, and not too many people know that in Mankato, Minnesota, he gave the order to hang 38 American natives, you know? So the guy wasn't always on the up and up. So what it all boils down to is there's always two sides to every story, and every book, you know, the cover never shows really what's inside the book. For us, we've been flying that flag ever since day one. Yep. I mean, I'm really to the point in my life after living for these many years of hearing about racism and hearing about, you know, prejudicial stuff. I'm really tired of it being a black and white situation.
Because it affects everybody.
Yeah, it affects everybody in a negative way. We should all pull together in a more positive way. You know, I've got relatives that still live on the reservation, and let me tell you something. You know, a lot of American natives won't get out on the street corners and bang the drum and say, woe is me, right? And that's one of the reasons, because we took care of our own. We were given pieces of land, you know, to live on. Hey, that's what you're going to live on. You go there. You don't get all this out here anymore. You go there. So I got to tell you, a lot of people in this country, they don't even want to know what atrocities was committed against American natives. They think that the slave thing was an atrocity. I got big news for you.
There's a whole lot of ugly chapters back there.
A whole lot of ugly chapters. Exactly. Right. Exactly. So you know what? To me, the Confederate flag just stands for a traditional heritage, and that's all it is.
I knew as a man of a people of this continent that you'd have a unique opinion on it, and that's why we did it.
Yeah.
Thanks, man, for sharing that
You're
with
welcome.
me. No, I appreciate that, and I know people listening
You're
like
welcome.
to hear that right from the source.
I mean, you got to understand, we don't look at North and South anymore as Yankees and Southerners or Midwesterners. We look at it as everybody being here under one roof, and everybody should try to get along.
One nation under a groove.
You got it. Under a groove, yeah, man.
So speaking of the groove, what's going to happen tonight? I've heard that there has not been a jam yet between Purple and Skynyrd. Are we going to ever get something like that by the end of the tour?
You know, with the way the shows are running right now, so tight on time, you know, I don't know if it's going to happen. Hopefully it's going to happen before this tour's over with. I'd love to see it, you know.
Well, if I can encourage it at all, I'd like ZLX to have been the station that sort of, you know, urged you guys along.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much. My pleasure.
Hey, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Ricky Medlocke here, 100.7. It's WZLX, Boston's Classic Rock.
Hi, this is Ricky Medlocke from the one and only Lynyrd Skynyrd, and you're listening to the one and only man, Dave Lawrence. That's right, on 100.7 WZLX, Boston's Classic Rock.